You're listening to Media Savvy Moms with Melody and Marilyn, a podcast by Parents Aware, your go-to for information on how to talk to kids and teens about pornography and healthy sexuality. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Media Savvy Moms. Today we have a Q&A show where we take questions from our audience and answer them on the air in a little bit shorter of a format. If you have a question you'd like to submit to the show, you can email us at admin@parentsaware.info or ask us on any of our Media Savvy platforms. So, the question today is, what about when my kids go on playdates? How can I talk with other parents about my concerns and about online safety without offending them? So this can get a little touchy, huh, Marilyn?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I love this question because times really are different than when we were kids. I have such fond memories of playdates with my friends in the neighborhood. And if I think back, we didn't even watch television. Like I imagine I'm looking at this room. I have such this picture in my head of this room just scattered with toys of every kind. And we just spent hours in there
Right.
playing and imagining. And in the summer, we went out in the pool and we swam and we played. And there was a television in the basement, but it was so rare that we ever went down there. Today, we've got devices in every room. And so I don't know what kind of conversations my mom had with my friends' parents. And if I think back to that time, I might say, well, just go ahead and play with your friends and it's going to be okay. But I know even my own experience of leaving my kids for a time and finding a YouTube video playing
Mm-hmm.
that was completely inappropriate and having to sit them down and say, "Hey guys, what were you doing?" And my son was like, "Oh, well, we just watched a video and we let YouTube play." And he didn't know what had come up afterwards.
Oh,
So, you know, YouTube has this autoplay and
right. Sometimes
kids
it
can
can be
start
unintentional, right? Even.
kids can start innocently watching something and then boom, something else shows up. So today we have to be much more intentional about setting expectations or bringing up the conversation about technology because technology is in every home and often kids have their own tablets and devices and you need to know what your kids are getting into when they're going over to someone's house. So it's okay to ask questions. And my experience has been that parents respond very well when you bring up the topic.
Hmm.
They may not have the same guidelines as you, but they're often quite respectful. So just be bold and say, we don't let our kids have unsupervised, or I don't let my child, because usually you're not sending your whole family over. I don't let my child, just so you know, I'm not comfortable with my child having unsupervised access to the internet. Is that a concern? Or how do you feel about that?
Sure.
And just open a conversation.
Sure. That's fair. Just like you, I felt like being proactive rather than reactive is going to be better for everybody, right? It's going to save feelings. It's going to, sometimes when we get, our kids have already gotten into trouble, it's even more touchy because whose fault was it and all of this. But if we've opened the conversation before with the parent, then we all have a framework to work inside of, right? So I love that point that you brought up about being proactive rather than reactive. So, open communication, huge with the parents and with your child, right?
Yep.
I don't know about you, but we have a standing rule in our house that our kids don't go over to another child's house unless I know the parents.
Yep.
Now, this does not make me popular. My kids are like, "Oh, mom, you're so mean. I'm the only kid who can't," right? But the thing is that we have this established rule. It's not only for that kid and only for this parent, it's everybody, right? And so that allows us to create a relationship family to family where we get to know each other's culture, we get to know each other's habits before. And then if you have that kind of a rule, it in theory, it's not going to be that hard to bring up these kind of conversations, right?
Well, I'm gonna give you a few examples. I do think there's times where you're getting to know someone. For example, my youngest had a best friend in kindergarten, and we invited him over for a play date. It seemed natural. I didn't know the family that well, but we had talked a little bit, taking our kids back and forth to school. So we're getting to know each other. They're only in kindergarten, grade 1. I invite them over. She can see that in our backyard, because it's a corner house, that the kids' heads are bouncing up and down off of a trampoline. First thing she says to me is, "Just so you know, my child will never be allowed on that trampoline." And
Oh.
I was like, "What? Okay, that's like the fun place in our house." But she had had an experience where her brother was very seriously injured on a trampoline. All she did was lay down the law with me. Like, she didn't care what my feelings were about it. She just needed to express that that was something that really was important to her.
And it's so valid, right? And you
Mhm.
didn't think, oh, what a weird mom. I can't believe. So
Even if I
why?
did, even this is the point I wanna make, even if I did think that that was a little bit weird, it wasn't my place. I was able to respect what she asked me to do. There was no like, that was a liability. If I put her kid on that trampoline, I was in trouble. And I liked the friendship that was forming between my son and her son, so why wouldn't I respect that? It just seemed natural.
It's perfect. And it's a perfect example, too. I think if we put it in that context of understanding that we want to keep our kids safe, just like we would set a boundary in place to keep them physically safe, keeping them safe on the internet is so much more relevant. Just like you said at the beginning, our kids are in a different place. When our parents prepped us to go somewhere, they were talking about running in the street, jumping on a trampoline. Today, our boundaries that we want to set in place are electronic and media related, right?
Yeah,
Great.
I wanted to bring up one second example. So this is another mom that really taught me that I was able to be in control, and she did it in such a non threatening way. She invited my child over for a play date, and again, we're just kind of getting to know the families. And she told me exactly what she intended to happen. They're gonna do this, they're gonna do this, this is what they're gonna have for a snack, and I was blown away. I was like,
Nice.
"Really?"
An itinerary.
Uh-huh.
Cool.
But she had had a negative experience with her kids going somewhere else, and so she became proactive about doing that, and I was so grateful, and I told her. So I think parents, if you take the lead, you will find that other parents are actually more gracious about and more grateful for that than you might realize.
I love it. So, we have a resource for you if you'd like to look into this a little further. Marilyn, what's our resource today?
So we're going to refer you back to a Parents Aware article called Proactive Parenting, Teaching Young Children Resilience Against Pornography. And this is an interview that I conducted with a young mom. And she started talking to her kids at an early age about the dangers of pornography, because and we're giving you this as a resource because it's twofold. You're going to talk to your kids' parents. Sorry, you are their parents. You're going to talk to your kids' friends' parents, but you're all, the layer of safety is that you're also going to prepare your children and let them know what is acceptable and not acceptable
Right.
in
It's
terms of
just
media.
yeah, just like we were talking about, the open communication is twofold. Open communication between parents and open communication with the kids. That's how we solve this problem. So, um, and we have a little quote about this. So you'd remember safety doesn't happen by accident. And the author is unknown for that quote, but we just thought we'd throw it in for you. And we have a challenge for you today. What's our challenge, Mare?
So ask your kids what their favorite aspect of a play date is, or what a favorite play date looks like. And then you'll get to know what they love to do. One thing we didn't mention, I think is really important. is that boys tend to want to go and play video games at their friend's house. So that's another thing to bring up. What is the favorite aspect of a play date? And build on it from there. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Media Savvy Moms podcast. For detailed show notes and links to any of the resources mentioned today, visit parentsaware.info. To connect with us on social media, find us on Instagram at Media Savvy Moms and on Facebook and Twitter at Parents Aware. We would love to get your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast. Until next week, let's keep talking.